Hi guys, this is Miss Kaufman, and this is a video on two-step equations with parentheses. So if you're doing the Google form, it says to write the equations on scratch paper. You need to. And if you're doing it on Google form, all you need to enter is the number. You do not need to enter X or Y equals, okay? All right, let's go down and give a look at what we got here. All right? All right. We got our pen. I was making sure it worked because just a minute ago it wasn't working. So I wanted to make sure it was. All right, we have 2 times the group x plus 3 equals 10. Now there are two ways to work problems with parentheses, and so I am going to show you them both because it's your preference. Now, these are groups. That 2 in front of those parentheses means 2 multiplied to everything in the group. So, since it's multiply, you can divide first. This is the only kind of equations you can divide first if there are parentheses. So, I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to find out how much one group is. And one group of x plus 3 is equal to 5. Both groups equal 10. Now, to solve that, all I need to do is do the opposite of what I see, the math I see on the side of the letter. I see plus 3. The opposite of plus 3 is either minus 3 or a negative 3. Since we're working on our integers, that's going to be 5 plus negative 3. We don't add different signs, we subtract. And 5 minus 3 is 2. And we have more positives, so it is a positive 2. So that's what you would enter here. Now let's look at distributing. Distributing means you'd multiply that 2 to everything in the group and rewrite your two-step equation. That would be 2 times 1x is 2x's plus 2 times 3 is 6 equals 10. And now I solved that just like I did the earlier two-step equations. The opposite of plus 6 is negative 6 to both sides, leaving me with 2 times x equals 10 plus negative 6, different signs. We subtract 10 minus 6 is 4, and we have more positives. All right, the opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. And as you can see, both ways we solved this, we got x equals 2. So we're going to just type in the 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and move to the next problem. If you need to write something down, please pause it. I'm going to clear it in 3, 2, 1, clear. All right, on to number 2. Number 2, we have 4 times the group x minus 1 equals 20. So on this one, I'm going to distribute first. That means the 4 is multiplied to everything inside. 4 times 1x is 4x. And 4 times a negative 1 is a negative 4 equals 20. Now I'm going to solve that just like my other two-step equations. The first thing I always move is the number without a variable or letter. The opposite of minus 4 is plus 4 or a positive 4 to both sides of the equation to keep it balanced. That leaves me with 4 x's equals 24. The opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing by 4. And that leaves me with the answer 24 divided by 4, which the answer is 6. Now if I worked it the other way, 4 times the group x minus 1 equals 20. Then divide both sides by 4 first. Remember, the only time you can divide first is if you have parentheses. And I always check, does my number divide by that number in front? If it does, hey, I'm going to go ahead and divide first. That leaves me with one group of x minus 1 takes off those parentheses equals 5. Remember, there is only two ways to get those parentheses off, either divide or distribute. Okay? They got to come off before you can take out anything that's inside those parentheses. All right, we have one step left. The opposite of minus 1 is plus 1 to both sides to keep it balanced, leaving me with the same answer of x equals 6. See, you did it. All right, I'm going to clear that in 3, 2, 1. Now, I'm going to leave the next one for you to do. And the reason I say that is I truly believe that if you did number 2 with me, you can do number 3. Okay? I'm going to quickly go over number 4, number 5, and then number 6 is where we start with negatives. All right. Number 3 is either distribute this 3 to both things inside, which would be 3x's minus 15 equals 9, and solve it as a two-step equation, or divide first. And if you divide first, that's going to leave you with one group of x minus 5 equals 3. Then you're just going to add 5 to both sides. I think you can do that. Same thing goes down for this one. You've got 3 times the group, x minus 2 equals 15. And here, 3 times the group, x minus 2 equals 15. So if we divide first by the number in front of the parentheses, that leaves us with one group of x minus 2 equals 15 divided by 3, 5. Then all you have to do is add 2 to both sides to get your answer, which I'm not going to go over. And if you decided to distribute, that 3 is multiplied to both terms inside the group before we can take out those parentheses. 3 times 1x is 3x's. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Gives us 15. Then we're going to solve that just like a regular two-step equation. Our first step is always to move the constant, the opposite of add or subtract, or negative and positive. The opposite of minus 6 is plus 6, and we're going to do that to both sides of the equation, which leaves us with 3 times x equals 21. The opposite of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. And once you divide by 3, you will have your answer on this side as well, and they're both the same. I'm not going to finish that because I believe you can do it. I'm clearing this in 3, 2, 1. Now the next one has just a little added thing to it, not much. We've got 2 times the group. 2 times x minus 1 equals 10. Ooh, they added a number, a coefficient inside the group. So you can still do this both ways, but both ways you'll have a two-step equation to solve. So if you decide to divide first by 2, you're left with the group 2 times x minus 1 equals 5. The first thing we do is the opposite of add or subtract, and the opposite of minus 1 is plus 1 to both sides of the equation to keep it balanced, leaving me with 2 times x equals 6. The opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. And when you do that, you will have your answer on this side, 6 divided by 2. Now, if you decided to distribute that, the 2 is multiplied to both terms inside the parentheses in order for the parentheses to come off. 2 times 2x's is 4x's. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 equals 10. All right, because remember, 1 negative multiplied is a negative answer. First thing we're going to do is move the number without a letter. The opposite of minus 2 is plus 2 to both sides to keep it balanced. Keep that hanger balanced. That leaves me with 4x's equals 12. The opposite of multiplying by 4 is dividing by 4. That cancels out. They're giving you 1x. And when you divide, you're going to get the same answer you did on that side. You got that. Okay? Let's move on to the ones with negatives. So before we do it, reminder, when you're multiplying and dividing, 1 negative, negative answer. 2 negatives, positive. This is where people miss it. Don't miss it. The only time you can add is when the signs are the same. Same sign, keep the sign, add the number. Different signs, stop, subtract, keep the sign you have the most of or gives you the most distance from 0. All right, let's go. We've got 3 times the group, x plus 2 equals a negative 9. So if we divide first, we divide both sides by the number in front of the parentheses, leaving us with one group of x plus 2 equals, we've got one negative, negative 9 divided by 3. The opposite of a positive 2 is a negative 2 to both sides. That cancels out. Same signs. Remember, when we're on this side, we're always going to be adding when we have signs. Same sign, keep the sign, add the numbers, negative 5. All right, let's try it the other way. When we're distributing, negative 9. All right, this one, you've got 3 times 1x is 3x's plus 3 times 2 is 6 equals a negative 9. The opposite of a positive 6 is a negative 6. And what we do to one side, we do to the other. That cancels out, leaving me with 3 times x equals. Same sign. Since they're both negative, we're adding 2 negatives. We keep the sign, add the numbers. The opposite of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. 1x. We're going to divide, but we've got one negative, meaning we've got a negative answer. And then that gives us the same thing we got on this side. Alrighty. I'm going to clear that in 3, 2, 1, clear. Remember, if you need to pause, pause it. All right, number 7. We have 2 times the group x plus 2 equals negative 8. This one I'm going to distribute first. Throw you a notch in case you're just doing the answers with me. All right, so I'm going to multiply that 2 to everything inside. 2 times 1x is 2x's. 2 times a positive 2 is a positive 4 equals negative 8. All right, remember the first thing we always move is the number without a letter or variable. The opposite of plus 4 is minus 4, and whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. Keep it balanced. That cancels out, leaving me with 2x's equals. Same sign, keep the sign, add the numbers. The opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. That leaves me with 1x equals, I've got a negative, one negative in a division problem. So remember, you've got to remember, is my answer going to be negative or positive? And you're going to finish that math, not me. All right, doing it the other way. 2 times the group x plus 2 equals a negative 8. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2, or positive 2, sorry. And that brings me down to x plus 2 equals, I have one negative in a division problem, so I have a negative, and 8 divided by 2, negative 4. The opposite of adding 2 is, I've got to finish my equation, get that x by itself. The opposite of a positive 2 is a negative 2. I do it to both sides of the equation. I'm going to get the same answer. Same sign, keep the sign, add the numbers. So no matter what way you go, you're going to get that same answer that I'm not going to finish for you because I know you can figure it out. All right, I'm going to clear that. 5, 4, 3, 2, and gone. All right, let's go to number 8. Number 8 has negative outside. So we've got negative 3 times the group x plus 4 equals negative 12. Nope, positive 12. Sorry about that. Let me erase that. I was getting a little ahead of myself. Equals positive 12. All right, you can distribute first if you want. Be very careful if you do. If I have a negative outside, I'm distributing that negative 3 to both. So negative 3 times 1x is negative 3x's. Negative 3 times a positive 4 is a negative 12 equals 12. Very interesting, huh? Huh, very interesting. And then we would add 12 to both sides. How many of you thought that was going to be 0? Uh-huh. And that happens a lot if people don't distribute correctly and they have the wrong sign there. All right? So that cancels out, leaving me with negative 3 times x equals 24. The opposite of multiplying by negative 3 is dividing by negative 3. That cancels out, giving you that 1x. You got one negative in that division problem. So remember your sign rule: one negative, negative answer; two negative, positive answer for all multiplication and division problems. Put your negative, then do your division. Now, had I done it the division way, plus 4 equals 12. I would have divided both sides by negative 3, and that would have left me with one group of x plus 4 equals, I have one negative, negative 4. Again, I'm not going to get 0. Okay, the opposite of a positive 4 is a negative 4 to both sides. That does not give me 0, people. Same sign, keep the sign, add the numbers. I'm letting you finish that because I want to see you do some of these. All right, I'm going to clear this in 5, 4, 3, 2, clear. All right, the next one. These are the ones you need to be super cautious of. Why do I say that? It's got a negative outside the parentheses and a minus inside. All right. My suggestion when you get these is to divide first, but I will show you how to do it multiplying, and I'm going to do that first. Now, if I see that I have negative inside and a minus inside, I need to be super careful. If you're not sure if you can remember this, then always cross the line and change the sign on these. I'm just telling you because it's going to make your life a lot easier. But if you can't remember to do that, let's go back and do it the way that you'll see them, because you're going to get a lot of these because people make mistakes on them. All right, negative 4 times 1x is negative 4x's. Here comes the part to be careful of. Negative 4 times a negative 2. negative 4 times a negative 2. Because remember, subtraction and plus and negative are the same thing. So that's negative 4 times negative 2, which is a positive 8, equals 16. All right, the opposite of adding 8 is a negative 8. I still have negative 4 times x equals 16, positive 16 plus a negative 8, different signs. I subtract. I have more negatives than positives, so it's 8. The opposite of multiplying by negative 4 is dividing by negative 4. That gives me 1x, or x. On this side, I've got one negative, so I've got a negative, and then I divide 8 divided by 4. Negative 2. I'm only helping with that one because I don't want you to miss it. So these are cautionary. Make sure you pay attention. If you have a negative outside and a minus inside, you are going to get, when you distribute, a positive, okay? A positive second number. All right, now we could have divided first. And I might recommend dividing first if you have a negative outside. That way you never have to worry about getting the wrong sign inside, because you saw earlier it changed the sign up there as well and made it a negative 12. So it's really important that you get the right signs. So hint, if I have a negative outside, I divide first. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. That leaves me with one group of x minus 2 equals, I've got one negative, so that's negative 4. All right, the opposite of subtracting 2 or a negative 2 is a positive 2. I have a negative 4 plus a positive 2, different signs, can't add. I subtract, I get 2. I have more negatives than positives, so it's a negative 2 both ways. So again, hint, hint, if I'm going to have a negative coefficient outside of the parentheses, I recommend dividing first if you can. If you can't, you better be careful with your signs, no matter if they're a plus or a minus inside. All right, let's do one more. All right, this last one also has a negative 5 outside. X plus 4 equals 15. Even still, you got to watch your signs. I'm going to distribute first. Negative 5 times 1 x's gives me negative 5 x's. Negative 5 times a positive 4, one negative, gives me a negative 20. Do you see why it's important to watch your signs? All right, and that equals 15. All right, I'm going to go over and divide first before I do anything more on that. So again, wisest move sign-wise, if you have a negative coefficient in front of parentheses, is to divide first. So I'm going to divide by negative 5, divide by negative 5. That leaves me with one group of x plus 4 equals, I've got one negative, negative 3. All right, back over to this side. The opposite of subtracting 20 or negative 20 is plus 20 or positive 20. That leaves me with negative 5 times x equals 35. And the opposite of multiplying by negative 5 is dividing by negative 5 to both sides of the equation, which leaves me with x equals, you got one negative in that division problem. What kind of answer you going to have? Okay. And then on this side, yeah, I didn't finish. You're going to finish. All right. On this side, we got to finish to get the x by itself. The opposite of plus 4 is negative 4. And on this side, you've got same sign, keep the sign, add the numbers to get the same answer you would on both sides. And that's how you do it, folks. The only way you're going to get better at this is practice, practice, practice. And that's why we're doing this today. So, whether this was on Google Forms or Edulastic, I hope you did your best. And this will be for a grade. Good luck.